Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we're going to be talking about Retribution Paladins on the PTR and the little bit of testing that I was able to do this week. I mentioned in a previous video this week that I would be on the PTR and testing some stuff out, like the tier sets and also Divine Hammer, because that's getting some big changes in 11.2. And there's not a ton of stuff available to do. There's just one Mythic Plus dungeon of it, I think, available with the new one to be tested. I am thinking about trying at least to getting some raid testing this week. It's harder to do in the beta. It's pretty easy. There's a lot of people doing it. There's a lot less people on patches, but if I'm able to, I might get in there and do some raid testing and look at things a little bit further. But while I don't have a ton of pertinent information, I do have some information and some stuff that might help clarify some things that I've been seeing being talked about by rep paladins and stuff throughout the community. So let's talk about Divine Hammer first. So Divine Hammer, this is getting changed to a 2-minute cooldown, and the extension is less per holy power spent or whatever. So right now, if you have full uptime on the boss in like 11.1.7, whatever, if you have full uptime on the boss, it's pretty easy to keep, like on a raid boss or whatever, or a dungeon boss, whatever. You get full uptime. It's pretty easy to keep your Divine Hammer at 100% uptime, maybe like 90 something percent uptime if you have some bad luck or something. But between the tier set and just the holy power generation, it's pretty easy to keep up. Now, with the 2-minute cooldown and the extension being worse, when I've messed around with this, it is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to keep this thing up even into a second execution sentence. So basically, probably on average, I could keep the Divine Hammer out for like 20 seconds or so. That would probably be on average, maybe like 21 or something like that, right? Now, I was thinking maybe with Bloodlust, you could maybe get into the second execution sentence, and then, it would still be a little bit more useful. But yeah, the reality is that it is a heavy nerf to Divine Hammer. It does more damage itself, of course. That's kind of the thing they're trying to split there. They also don't want to force this ability to be played, like a Breath of Sindragosa for DK or something like that. They don't want to force Divine Hammer to be played, and at where it currently was, it was basically forced to be played. However, like the other thing they risk doing if they make it too weak is that it's just never played, and then you have a cool ability that's just never played. So do they have to balance there? Absolutely. But I'm pretty underwhelmed with it currently. I've seen some people saying that as long as you're playing, so with Herald of the Sun, you wouldn't even bother with this at all. But I've seen some people saying that with Templar, you'd still 100% play it. I'd push back on that a little bit. It's still good, but like if you put talents into other things, you'll notice that it's not like that much better or whatever. And there's another big thing we need to talk about to kind of like give like a little bullet point or caveat to that. Basically, a caveat to all the Templar testing being on the PTR, because I'm pretty sure it's bugged. But a lot of the other talents are very similar to Divine Hammer for single target that you have to choose from. I tried some other things too, because it's a 2-minute cooldown. I tried taking off Radiant Glory and playing just regular Crusade because it's also a 2-minute cooldown, and trying to kind of marry those 2-minute cooldowns together. That didn't seem to have any helpful effect at all on it. Again, that would be like, okay, maybe with Bloodlust that would have a helpful effect or something, but even then it wasn't enough to like carry it or anything like that. So ultimately Divine Hammer still might be played with Templar, but it's like way less significant as it was in this previous patch, and so it's like a short-lived thing for Divine Hammer perhaps. But one thing they could do, honestly, is they could just increase the damage that the Divine Hammer itself does. So it's like if it's a 2-minute cooldown, it should do pretty significant damage itself, maybe. So if they do that, so even if they increase the damage, they increase the damage it does already. But if they increase the damage it did by like another, I don't know, 20%, then it would be like a slam dunk talent. But again, maybe they don't want everyone to take it all the time for single target, for multi-target, etc. Maybe that's not their goal with it, but we'll see as we play out. Obviously, I'll test it out more, especially Mythic Plus dungeons and stuff. That's easier to test on the PTR at this point in expansion. you know, we can test it out a lot more. Everything's with a caveat, and let's talk about that caveat too. So we're on Herald of the Sun spec, but for Templar, I'm pretty sure the same bug that was on the live version of the game, where the Empyrean hammers weren't falling, I believe because of Hammer of Light, like the Hammer of Light wasn't causing them to fall. I believe that's happening on the PTR, or something very similar is. All I have to go on, I haven't done anything which I logged or anything like that. But looking at details, the only thing I can see is that there just aren't as many Divine Hammer or Empyrean hammers falling, and the damage of Empyrean Hammer is very low overall to where you would expect it to be from playing in 11.1.7. So either it's bugged or something like that. I'd imagine it's probably bugged. Obviously, I can't confirm that or anything. If any of you know for sure what's going on with that, I would love to know. But when I first looked at the damage, I go, oh, it's just bugged still. Then that's like my first takeaway for it, because the damage of it was so low. Now, the tier set for Templar also has to do with the Divine Hammers, right? Or not the Divine, sorry, I keep saying Divine Hammers, Empyrean Hammers. And if those aren't working properly, then you can't even really test out the tier set. And so because of that, I've seen a lot of people saying, well, I'm hitting the target dummy and Herald of the Sun's doing so much more than Templar. Herald of the Sun's going to be the best thing to play in this patch. Now, I would love if that is the case, and it could be the case, because even in 11.1.7, Herald of the Sun is only like 5% behind Templar. Once they finally got Herald working, because there was all kinds of bugs with Herald of the Sun, once they finally buffed it and got it working, you know, it is close to Templar. So if the tier set for Herald is just way more powerful, then it is possible that we would play Herald in this next patch. It is completely possible, but I would just pump my brakes a little bit, because like I said, I think the Empyrean hammers are bugged, or something's wrong with them. You know, it went from being like your number 1 damage to like your number 3 or 4 damage, or pretty much your number 3 damage when you're playing around with it. So it's significantly lower, and I did run a dungeon just to make sure of that, and it still was low in my dungeon as well. And so I think that's what's going on, but it could be something else. It could be something else, but that's what I think is going on there. I'll know more myself, even if no one else can report on it. People that like pour through logs and stuff a little bit more than I do report on it or something like that. But I'll figure it out myself if I have to. But yeah, something's wrong with Templar, so be a little bit careful when you're seeing people say Herald of the Sun's for sure going to be the best thing. But yeah, I can confirm as of right now, Herald of the Sun does more damage, but I don't think Templar is working properly. So it's like, take that with a huge grain of salt. The last thing we can talk about is the tier sets. What I can say for the Herald tier set is, they're both cool, first of all. Both the tier sets are pretty cool. The Herald tier set, of course, is this, well, we can just look at it real quick. The Herald tier set is Dawn Light's healing and damage is increased, and you get Solar Wrath after your Avenging Wrath is over. And Solar Wrath basically causes then the little the sun's avatar here, the light, the burning line between you and your enemies or whatever, to persist a little bit longer afterwards. And so and then the 4-piece makes your holy power spenders more effective while you have that Solar Wrath on you, and it also grants you a Dawn Light as well, and so that's just more Dawn Light damage, and it's all passive, and it's pretty fun. It feels powerful. It's pretty cool. Like the whole fun part of, is, if you follow my channel, the whole fun part of Herald of the Sun for me is the Sun's Avatar. So getting like more Sun's Avatar time is kind of fun and cool to me. And so it's a fun tier set. You don't have to play around anything really. It's pretty natural. The Templar tier set is really fun too. So the Templar tier set, without, I guess we could switch, but without switching, basically what it does is when you use your Hammer of Light, so you Wake of Ashes, Hammer of Light, you actually get to press Hammer of Light again, but it's not free, okay? And that's kind of the weird thing with this tier set. And then the other thing is your stacks of, I believe it's called Light's Deliverance is the actual name of it, that give you the free Hammer of Light, the one that doesn't cost holy power. Those stacks pile up faster too. Now I think, actually we will switch, because I think they pack up or stack up faster based on your Empyrean hammers. And so if Empyrean Hammers are not working properly, let's go to a Templar build here. If Empyrean Hammers are not working properly, then that means the tier set likely wouldn't be working properly as well. Your Empyrean Hammers deal more damage, critical damage, 50% chance to grant an additional stack of lights to low variance. Yeah. So if not as many hammers are hitting, then that's going to cause an issue with the tier set. And if that is true, so if what I'm experiencing is a bug with Empyrean Hammers, that means the tier set isn't working properly, and you're going to get Hammer of Lights even faster with this tier set. So what's kind of cool is you get lots of Hammer of Lights. It's a fun button to press. It feels a little bit wonky because you go to 2 Holy Power, let's say. So let's say you don't have Divine Hammer talented, right? And a lot of my after I messed with Divine Hammer, a lot of it I was doing without Divine Hammer. So let's say you're at 2 Holy Power, you Wake of Ashes, or you Execution Sentence, Wake of Ashes. Now you have 5 Holy Power, and you spend it on your Hammer of Light. You now have another Hammer of Light ready, but you need to build back up to 5 to use it. So Divine Purpose is very good at that point, right? So if that procs a Divine Purpose, or you had a Divine Purpose from the last verdict that you cast, that's really good, because now your first Hammer Light is free from the Divine Purpose, or your second one if that one procs it, and then you basically get to press it twice in a row. And then very often especially since your Light's Deliverance stacks are stacking up more, you'll actually be able to press a third one. Now Shake the Heavens you can already kind of keep up 100% again if you stay on a boss, even in 11.1.7. And with this more Hammer of Lights, just everyone's going to be able to keep up Shake the Heavens without really trying. You could maybe like delay your free Hammer of Light or something to make sure that happens or something like that, but it's not like a difficult thing or anything. If anything, just makes it even easier for all people to do it. And even if you have to get off the boss, maybe you have a better chance to keep it up anyways. Like let's say you had to lead the boss, you could hold that free Hammer of Light and then go back and press it again, or you could hold the second one or whatever, however you need to do it, right? You could do that to keep it up 100% even on an occasion where you have to get off the boss, since you have so many more Hammer of Lights to press. So that's kind of like an interesting thing, but it does feel good just to press the button a lot. It's just a fun button. They also made Hammer of Light hit more targets and do more damage to the initial target that it hits. And so it's a very powerful tier set. The thing is, all the tier sets are powerful from all the classes and specs. So last tier they kind of went with an RNG thing with like medium power or average power for the tier sets. It seems like they're kind of doubling down and saying, okay, a lot of your power is going to come through your tier sets for this tier. And so that's where we're going to get a lot of power from the tier sets. That's just kind of the way it is. Unless they nerf everybody's, right? Because it's so many specs have really cool and powerful tier sets bonuses that they would just have to nerf everybody's, and maybe they will do that, I guess. But they're all really cool. It seems like kind of they wanted to go all out with the tier sets. Now, hopefully that doesn't mean they're taking them away again, like they did in BFA. Like, oh, we're gonna do these really strong tier sets and then take them away again. That does make balancing the game even easier, but the game's already pretty well balanced, at least in single target, as we stand already. So I didn't mind Azrael armor personally back in BFA, but it was not popular among the community. So hopefully that's not the case. That's just me kind of like almost joking around, because the tier sets are so strong in this tier and so impactful, I guess you might say. So that's where I'm at right now. Basically, Divine Hammer, it's not dead, but it's heavily nerfed. Divine Hammer is heavily nerfed for Templar. You can see even when I was messing around last, I didn't even have it on. So Divine Hammer is heavily nerfed for Templar. Templar might be bugged. Something's wrong with Templar. Something's wrong with Empyrean Hammers. I'm not sure what that is. Likely a bug, but something's wrong with that. So take anything with a grain of salt. And then the tier sets, they're both really, really cool. And it could come down to if Herald's is just more DPS or whatever by a significant margin. That could, in theory, push Herald into the lead, right, as the spec to play. But the Templar tier set's also really strong and cool, so we'll see there. You're not going to lose out either way. As far as having a fun tier set, they're both fun to play in their own ways. If you're like me, right? The reason I like Templar is because Hammer Light's a fun button. You get to press it more. The reason I like Herald is because Sun's Avatar is a fun thing to play with the burning light and stuff like that. Class fantasy, all that kind of stuff. So if you agree with those things, then both tier sets are enjoyable. And obviously the best outcome would be is that you play Templar for some things and Herald for others. They've not managed to hit that objective, my objective, I should say. It wasn't their objective. My objective was for that to happen, and they have not hit that. It's either been Herald for everything or Templar for everything so far. I would love if they could hit that, and you play one for one thing, one for the other thing. That would be really cool. And I don't care which for which at this point. I did want Herald to be the AoE spec, and then Templar to be the single target spec, but I don't care anymore. You know, they clearly did not want. I think the problem is Herald is also shared with Holy, and they don't want Holy doing massive AoE damage, and they also want to stick to their premise of like not having it be a completely separate thing for Rat as it is Holy. Like they want it to be somewhat similar at least. But yeah, who knows where it'll go in the future or anything like that. But you know, my goal is always let's play both of them because they're both fun. We luckily as Rat don't have any hero talent stuff that isn't cool to play or whatever. So hopefully that ends up being the case. So we'll get more specific testing in the future. We'll get you know, like I said, dungeon testing for sure, and hopefully some raid testing where we can go over some things and talk more and have more of these talks like this as we go into 11.2. So that's it for this one, guys. As always, I suggest you subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.